Hey all, Taves here, back playing some more Planet Zoo. So pangolins today. So this video is going to be a slightly different format than usual, partly because I lost some footage, but also partly because I think this one needs a slightly different approach. So we started working on a proof of concept on Twitch the other day for a pangolin habitat. And the initial idea was something like this. This is very small. And the scales are upside down and there's all sorts of things wrong with it. But the idea was, could we make something that kind of represents a pangolin? There's a couple of sort of inspiration images that I'll put on the screen that kind of led to this idea. So this was our initial kind of proof of concept. Then we kind of went for a different material and larger. This one didn't feel like it worked quite well. And by this stage I hadn't kind of realised that this was the wrong way around. Then we went to this one, which I actually really liked. The original idea and image in my head was that it was like the building would look like a curled up pangolin. So if you don't know, that kind of when distressed and when alarmed, they do the thing that I think armadillos do as well, which is kind of roll up in a little ball, which is their defense mechanism against jaguars. But unfortunately, one of the reasons why they're really, really easy to catch in the wild, or for humans to pick them up, because they just effectively become a little ball. So this was this one, just kind of really difficult to turn into a building. Played around with the idea of some concrete down one side. So it looked like it was kind of just going to be a concrete. I think I probably could have done this one, and it wasn't too bad. Then we played around with some things that would be more like a traditional dome, but then they were going to end up always kind of never really tessellating right. And there was a few more iterations of that. And then I was using the method that I had actually used for the tropical dome, which was kind of to place them sideways to follow this form, and then to rotate that whole thing round. But again, didn't kind of work that well. Then I sort of started playing around with completely different directions. I was just using these kind of suggested materials to create these kind of patterns. But where we actually ended up was this. So this was inspired. Oh, there's another little one over here, which I think probably would have worked, but was super small. But this is based on this reference image from the Chobe, the Pangolin Hotel in Kobe National Park, which I think is in Africa somewhere, Botswana, I think. But yeah, so it's basically like it follows the shape of a pangolin, and we still have the kind of tessellating pattern on the back of it. I actually kind of kept this fairly simple. I'm going to say that it's a lot of piece count. This one is going to be well and truly over the piece count limit, so you will have to, if you want to download this one off the workshop, it will be blueprint only, park file only, sorry, and not habitat, because it's such a big. Basically, this roof is over the 4,000 pieces. So what I really did was I created these individual scales, and then the shape that I created, I just kind of created this curvature and the shape of the pangolin. So it's supposed to be that it's kind of representing the shape of the pangolin. And I think it works all right. And then we've just, at the moment, at this point in the video, we've just got a big empty space. So we've got to turn this into something. So we'll jump ahead into the speed build now, guys, and then we'll see this thing come to life. Okay, so first things first, getting a pathway in. There's a few different things going on here, actually, quite a bit. As I said, usually there's always quite a lot of footage cut out of the speed build. I just try and give you a feel for the process that's going on. I decided that I wanted it kind of to look like it was sunk down, almost like you've kind of come across it. Weirdly, it's sort of this idea of it being that you're kind of standing over it, and this is how the habitat actually feels, from a sort of that you've discovered this little pangolin down in this kind of little hole, kind of burrow. So that's what I'm doing here. If you didn't catch that in the speed build, how you do this kind of raised, evenly raising platform that I've got there is to use one of the guest facilities, the track ride, and put on the auto tunnel. And if you have auto tunnel on and it's above the terrain, then it will create the terrain underneath it, and you use that to create a nice smooth raising path. Another little trick here is I want this to look like it's being retained by a Gabion wall, so use the glass, because the glass is the only barrier you can use to create a curve. And then so you create the curve with the glass barrier, then you turn it into a Gabion. And then we're kind of tracing. What you end up with is kind of, you end up with like a janky edge where the terrain and the path and the barrier meet. So what we're doing here is just kind of covering that janky edge up, making these little flower beds, some little custom fencing pieces. So by this point I know I'm already over the 4,000 piece mark for the habitat, so I just think, oh screw it, we'll just go to town. We'll go to town with this one and not worry about the piece count at all. So there's a lot of pieces in this little fence, and you see the Gabion just behind. So as I said, it's supposed to feel, and you'll see this when we do the tour at the end. There's not going to be any cinematics in this video, but there'll be a tour at the end where we do a little walk around, and it's supposed to be that you kind of walk down this slowly, gently declining slope into where the pangolin is, or where this sort of pangolin house is. So yeah, just following this edge round, using the mulch there, and a lot of this sort of stuff I didn't notice at this stage. I've got this little bit of mulch sticking out, which was a little bit annoying. I should have noticed that before. But you cover a kind of a multitude of sins when you do these sorts of things. You can kind of, as long as you go back and cover them up with something. So often I'm not worrying about kind of perfection. I'm just kind of knowing that I can often cover things away, and sometimes those little imperfections actually give you a new sort of creative idea. So creating this little, I have to say I've never really done anything that's been Asian feeling before. Pangolins are they found in kind of southern parts of China and India and like Bhutan and Myanmar and those sorts of places, I believe. I think that's what it says in the Zoopedia. But I've never really created anything that's been of that kind of region before. So this was all new. I didn't really want to go too heavy with it. I didn't want to go with the kind of classic, Chinese looking temple, because I just felt like it was a sort of visual distraction from the cool looking building that I've created. So just this kind of create this little little dividing channel there. So we've got a lot of nature being put down, and most of this gets cut out of the video. And then just sort of clean what I take as being, I think when I look at modern architecture in Asian architecture, a lot of the time you see kind of clean lines, and not stuff that necessarily is of the traditional visual aesthetic. But I mean, I may be wrong. I don't have a lot of experience. By no means am I a silverette of this sort of architecture at all. Just creating a little fence here. So it's just a combination of textures really, and I don't think I've got it. I'm not 100% happy with this. The final result I think is pretty good. But there's a lot of kind of different things going on here, and I think maybe if anything it ends up so it was a big jump forward there. We've done a lot of terrain work. This is probably my my heaviest hit on the Chinese theme, but this is someone may well tell me I'm wrong, but this was how I found the translation of pangolin in Cantonese, not Cantonese, Mandarin. Just using these little timber pieces to create the lettering and trace it out. And this is down on the floor, and you'll see I kind of move this around a little bit in a second, but that's supposed to be roughly, well, that is as best as I can do. I have seen some people do some pretty amazing Asian Chinese. I'm not even sure what this sort of lettering is called. I'm a not particularly well educated on this sort of thing, but did my best. So then we've kind of done a little bit of decoration. You can see I've used one of the sign pieces upside down there for like a trim around the bottom of the wall. Just a couple of beams. We've got a couple of little different bits and pieces. We're creating a door into this house. So the idea is you may well be looking at this kind of going, there's no outside space. Well, there's it doesn't really work super well for the game, the pangolin, because actually everything I've seen is that pangolins are kept inside mostly, because they're, for a zoo, this has got a classic kind of one of those sort of thing where I think the game just kind of needs a little bit more on this sort of thing. I mean, I guess it's a sort of abandonment of the realism, but they're a nocturnal animal, so if you had them outside with outside spaces, they just never would be out there in the day, and guests would never see them. So what zoos tend to do is kind of trick the animal as night cycle into thinking it's daytime in the night and nighttime in the day, so that they'll actually come out and be seen. In order to do that, you need to have a roof and lights, and it all be kind of enclosed. We've created this kind of weird, it's a little bit difficult to see in this light, but you'll see it better in the tour. But what we're creating here is like a cross section of a burrow. It actually, I think it ends up coming out quite well. It doesn't look too good from inside the habitat, but from the peep view, from the guest view, I actually think it looks pretty good. So yeah, it's actually a pretty simple habitat. They don't need a lot of space, and you're not allowed to have loads of them. They don't. I think it's 3 is the kind of population limit in any one habitat. So yeah, just creating some education boards here. Go back to the idea of the importance of the education. I've got this big room to fill, so I actually quite enjoyed making the space work. The pangolin's part of it is a fairly small area, or the actual habitat of it is a fairly small part of this big structure. Potentially not overly realistic that a zoo would give up this much space for a pangolin, but hey ho, this is the name of the game. We're just having a bit of fun. So we are very much at the end, and I will see you very soon for the tour. Okay, so let's take a little look around. So we just come in through this high raised path. So this is supposed to be the entrance into this whole area. And as usual, we don't massively consider how this would link up into the rest of the zoo. There is no other parts of the zoo, as it's a one-off habitat. So we're deliberately kind of keeping it hidden. Deliberately worked on all the foliage and stuff to kind of keep it hidden. Here you can see my crazy raised paths. I didn't probably do as much detail on the right-hand side of the path as I would have done usually, but I think that's you probably want to integrate that actually into the zoo a bit more. So coming along here, we start to see a kind of really heavy on the foliage, kind of down in this little bit. So yeah, this is where you kind of first get the idea that I was saying about it being kind of down in the ground. It's a bit of I don't know, I think I got this from weirdly a Cirque du Soleil show I went to see a number of years ago that was kind of about insects, and we sat up right in the high part of the theatre looking down on the performers, and it felt a bit like the idea of you kind of feeling like you're above, looking down into nature. And so that was kind of the idea of it being like a raised platform. It's probably a bit of a poncy way of looking at it, but that was kind of the thought behind it. So we'll basically get all the way round here. We'll do a little. I probably should push on because this will take a little while for us to get down there in Tejid-Cam. And as I said, if you saw that reference image in the speed build or in the intro section, I think that kind of it's all right. It does all right. It's supposed to just be a gesture at it. We see some peeps running past here. In fact, let's unpause it. Let these guys do their business. Zoom down here a little bit. So just to kind of blank that off, that aside. So as we come around this corner, this is where it starts to get probably a bit more rich. I had a few issues with the path here. It's not quite as perfect as it should be, but so coming down, the guests seem to have a fascination with taking this path, but there's nothing up there. We'll go round that way eventually. So little education board kind of introducing you to what this area is. And we'll go down there first. I see that guy just walking straight through that wall. So here's our lettering. I think it turned out all right. Hopefully it is roughly what it's supposed to be. So let's push on down this little outside section. So yeah, just wanted to keep this kind of simple. It's supposed to be just a sort of a barrier between the nature and the pathway, really. Just a bit of a nod to Chinese sort of cultural or architectural ideas, but as I said, I'm not particularly good at these kind of Asian garden sort of style things. But so this continues down. We've done some detailing there. We'll come that way out the back of the. In fact, we'll go that way because there's not really a lot to see. I actually just plopped down I cheated a little bit and plopped down the in-game. These are the prefabs, just for the backstage kind of area. I've got a door there that goes into the back of the habitat. So let's zoom round. This is about the best sort of time of day. It's a little bit later than I would usually show stuff, but I quite like all the shadows and things. Hopefully the shadows look all right on the video. So we go through, as I said, those are all the sign pieces that I've just flipped over. I think they work quite well as a kind of a bit of a trim. The many pieces of the roof. And then I really like in here. Weirdly, there's no guests in here. That's kind of odd. Oh, here we go. Some peeps coming in, finally. A vet coming in and some peeps. So yeah, it's actually quite a simple, and weirdly like this huge, great big building that I've created, and then I've created this little box inside it, because I think the idea of what I was doing, the design of the building, kind of didn't massively work with the idea of it being a night house. This is what this is supposed to be. That reminds me, we'll have a look in the night. So a few things I've picked up off the workshop. I think this is Mr. Tomez's leaflet. Super awesome. So first little bit of education about keratin. So keratin, I may have said this in the intro, I can't remember now, but keratin is the same thing that your fingernails are made out of. And I think it's something like the pangolin, I think it's something like 60% of the body weight is in this, is in the shell. So if we let's go down this little stairs first. And if you've seen my videos before, I do always kind of try and squeeze in some educational stuff. So amazingly, apparently each individual pangolin is thought to eat around 70 million insects a year, which is an enormous amount, but that's what they reckon they eat, mostly termites and ants and things, so plenty of those to go around. But also, quite funnily, they don't have any teeth. So what they do is they're thought that they eat little stones and things to kind of break down the insects in their stomachs. So here's our kind of cross section view of the burrow. I'm noticing from this view actually you don't have a top there. That doesn't work super well. But these actually work really well in the night, so I'll show you those again in a second in the night. So it's supposed to be that's kind of where they hang out, and they do go in there. I think I've only got one pangolin in the habitat at the moment. So the actual habitat itself is pretty simple. There's not an enormous amount to it. They don't really need a lot of space. So I kept it really pretty straightforward and simple in there. I think this probably is more about the building than anything. Hello, that's extreme close up. A couple of Rice's little education boards, maps and things, and then we did some decorations on the walls and whatnot. So let's jump out of Teducam and let's go into night mode. I spent quite a lot of time on the lighting for this one, so we'll do a bit of a swoop around. I don't usually spend as much time on the lights, but I felt for it being a nocturnal animal, it seemed appropriate to do so. And I put in some colour lighting. We've got these big spotlights kind of creating the kind of orangey effect of the animal, which I think works quite well. A few bits that you didn't really see in the tour there was, there's water around here. This is supposed to all just be kind of semi-wild, I guess. Again, it's supposed to feel like it's down in the undergrowth. That was the idea. So let's swoop down there. We've got some lights in here. I did actually put some lights under the water, but they don't really seem to do a lot. And let's go inside, because I think this actually works quite well in the night. So you see that I've left the rest of it dark, and there's no lights in the rest of the tank. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to get proper steps in down here. So they don't actually, the guests don't come down the steps. Are we actually going to see a pangolin anywhere? Because I promise you they do go into these little burrows. I don't actually know where they are. Is there actually one in there? Let's have a little look-see. Hello? Little pangolin friend? Are you hiding somewhere? There he is. So it was up in the little burrow. So from this side, it's all a bit kind of, fudgy and doesn't look real. But I think that's actually kind of how a zoo would really do this sort of thing. So maybe we'll get another 2 or 3 of them in there. So I think that's probably going to be it, guys. As I said, as usual, this will be up on the workshop. I'll be putting up this education board and this separately as well. The whole park file will be up. As I said, it won't be up as a habitat this time, unfortunately, because the piece count was just too high. Mainly because of this crazy idea of the shell roof. But yeah, pretty happy with that. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Massively looking forward to the Australia DLC next week, as I'm sure all of you are. And hopefully I shall see you guys on the next week. All right, cheers guys. Take it easy.